In my story, I lived what seemed like a perfect suburban life until I uncovered a shocking secret. My wife Rebecca had been unfaithful, and my 4 children were not biologically mine. This revelation turned my world upside down, and I decided to take action. Welcome to the Butterfly Tumblr Radio channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Before everything changed, life felt simpler. My days centered around work, the kids and the little moments that made it all worthwhile. Diane and I were living the suburban dream for kids, a nice home and fulfilling careers. I believed our family life was stable, that our small sacrifices were worth it for our kids, happiness and security. But looking back, there were signs of trouble. Some at first, easily brushed off as the natural drift of time. Over the years, I noticed Rebecca becoming distant. Initially, I attributed it to the challenges of raising 4 kids, managing a home and her job pressures. I was often tired too, so I didn't think much of it, but something felt off. At times I felt like a stranger in my own home, sensing Rebecca was carrying a secret she wouldn't share. I tried to ignore it, focusing on being a good father and husband, but the unease grew stronger with time. One morning I was hurrying to get the kids ready for our trip. "All right, everyone, let's go. Grab your bags and head to the car," I urged from inside. One of them yelled, "I can't find my sunglasses, check on top of your head." I quickly replied, "Found them." They called back. The kids paraded past me, dropping their bags by the car. My old Subaru Outback, with lots of miles but still reliable, was ready to go. I locked the front door, walked to the driveway and popped the back hatch. The kids tossed in their bags and scrambled to buckle up. After organizing the luggage, I got in the driver's seat and started my pre-trip checklist. "Is everyone here? Sophia, Ethan, Ava, Mia?" I called out, getting a chorus of "here" from all 4. I ran through the packing lists: bathing suit, sunglasses, hat, flip-flops, running shoes, underwear, t-shirts, shorts, sunscreen, phones and tablets, all essentials for our Disney World trip. Everyone confirmed. "All right, Florida, here we come." I announced yes. They shouted in unison, and with that we headed to the airport for spring break in Florida. The flight was direct to Orlando and I had a rental van ready. By mid-afternoon we'd be in the pool. I booked 2 adjoining rooms, one for the kids and one for me nearby. To keep things in order, we had 5 days to hit all the major attractions and a day at SeaWorld. I planned this trip despite my wife's objections. Rebecca wanted to join us but insisted we delay until summer because of her New York trip. I argued she didn't really need to go to NYC and should come with us instead. I lost that argument, but I stood firm and took the kids to Florida, while Rebecca stuck to her plans and went to New York. Disney is a money-making machine. The park is massive, with plenty of hotels and resorts to meet all your needs. The kids are having a blast and my main job is to keep an eye on them and cover the bills, especially for food. They eat a lot. I make sure we get at least 1 healthy meal a day, usually dinner. I also insist on some vegetables, fruit and milk in the morning, so I'm not a completely negligent father allowing unlimited junk food. My plan is to return to the hotel by 4 p.m. to cool off in the pool, then clean up for dinner. After dinner they can swim again if they want, but by 9 p.m. they're back in the room ready for bed, teeth brushed, and it's quiet time until they fall asleep. The fresh air and exercise wear them out, so they're usually asleep by 9:30. I then relax with a beer, catch up on work emails and make sure the kids call Rebecca every day. She knows to be available to talk to them without distraction. I'm aware of what she's doing in New York, but she doesn't know. I know and I intend to keep it that way. I know more about my wife than she realizes. I'm aware she's been involved with other men for some time. I also know that I'm not the biological father of our children, but rather one man who resembles me. That's how the paternity issue has been avoided. Our children share my blood type. I had them tested and yes, I've done DNA tests too. I'm not naive. When I met Rebecca, I was infatuated with her. She's tall, blonde, beautiful and smart. What's not to love? That infatuation turned into love and we got married and had kids. 4 of them came quickly and life became all about family. My time was consumed by the kids, Rebecca, the house and work. Occasionally I'd do something for myself, but those moments were rare. I started getting up early 3 mornings a week to run 5 or 6 miles before beginning my day. Being a father is the most important role I have, for people depend on me for almost everything. Rebecca does a great job as their mother, working just as hard as I do. She was a stay-at-home mom for the first few years and she's done well since going back to work. But it's her work that's become the problem. More on that later. I know a few things, like the fact that my wife has been unfaithful for almost our entire marriage. I didn't discover this until about 3 years ago. By accident. When I found out, it hit me hard. A doctor told me my blood type didn't match my son Ethan's, and after retesting, I realized the truth. I was devastated. Now let me tell you about Daniel, the biological father of my children. Daniel is, in my opinion, a complete idiot, but Rebecca is infatuated with him. He works for his father, Howard, who built a successful construction company. Howard and his wife led a luxurious life, and Daniel learned it from his father that money can get you out of any trouble. Daniel married Emily after she got pregnant, and their life seemed perfect, though Daniel was never truly happy. I'd always worked hard for my family, but after learning the truth, I knew I needed a net in case Rebecca ever decided to leave me for Daniel. Despite her infidelity, Rebecca seemed content with our life, happy with our home, kids and her job. She never complained to me. When I found out I wasn't the biological father, I was depressed and considered my options. I even spoke to a lawyer, but every option had major downsides. If I divorced Rebecca, she'd likely get custody and I'd still have to support the kids, even though they aren't biologically mine. The court wasn't concerned with fairness, just with ensuring the kids were provided for. My lawyer made me realize that abandoning my family would only hurt the kids, and I couldn't do that. I love them and they see me as their dad, so I developed a plan in the short term. I decided to pretend everything was fine and not reveal what I knew. I estimated it would take 2 to 4 years to prepare for my long-term plan. What's the long-term plan? Well, I started funneling money into a separate account, investing it wisely in stocks like Tesla, Amazon and Apple. I've built a portfolio worth over $6 million, and it's still growing. This money is my safety net and Rebecca knows nothing about it. She has her secrets and now I have mine. My plan was almost complete, with just another year needed to finalize everything for success. I wasn't aiming for revenge. I had my 4 kids to consider and didn't want them caught in the middle of the chaos. After our anniversary trip, I took the kids to the annual RV show. They loved it and were excited about the idea of traveling the country in an RV. I began to think they had a good point. We brought home a bag of brochures and the kids spread them out on the family room floor comparing options. They agreed that the Grand Design 5th wheel trailer was the best fit for our family. With its bunk beds and 2 bathrooms, it was spacious enough for all us. I needed a truck to pull it, so I found a new Ford F-150 crew cab perfect for the job. After a visit to the bank, I left with the cashier checks and bought the truck. It's red, my favorite color. Rebecca was more than a little upset. Alex, we're supposed to discuss big purchases like this, she said exasperated. How much did you spend? Well, I replied the trailer was about 9.0 and the truck was another 6.0, so around 15.0 total. Not bad. Rebecca looked pale and had to sit down and sighed. I was amused. There are a few more things we need before we can start traveling, but the kids are really excited to hit the road. You've all heard the phrase E asterisk quid pro quo, meaning something for something. In my case, since Rebecca had maintained a long-term relationship with Daniel, I figured I could do the same. But I hadn't, mainly because I only recently found out about their affair, so I felt I had some catching up to do. I started by funneling money into investments, which paid off well. Phase 1 of my long-term plan. Phase 2 was to start undermining Dia's relationship with Daniel. I needed to apply some pressure and make her wonder if I knew what she was up to. The trailer and truck idea came from the kids wanting to travel, so I used it to see if Rebecca would go along with it or resist buying them before telling her was a subtle jab. But she deserved it. When I pulled into the driveway with the truck and trailer, the kids were ecstatic. We set up the trailer, extended the slides, and the kids eagerly started organizing their bunks. They insisted on sleeping in the trailer that night, so I told Rebecca we should do the same to test it out. She stayed with me, but I knew it was due to pressure from the kids and from me. We'll see how things unfold. The travel trailer and truck were fantastic. The kids were thrilled all weekend driving around the park, riding bikes, hiking, swimming, and making new friends. We had campfires both nights and they didn't want to come home. I couldn't blame them. Rebecca, however, seemed less impressed with camping, despite the luxury trailer constantly swatting at bugs. I know time is running out and I need to address Rebecca's double life. She has to choose between her longtime boyfriend and me, even though he's their biological father. I'm the one who raised, loves and cares for the kids. I'm the father who's always there for them, teaching, comforting, and telling bedtime stories. There won't be another father who just shows up to sleep with their mother once a week and then returns to his own family. No, it's almost time to move forward, have the talk and resolve this. A few months later, it was time to start moving forward. The kids were ready, and so was I, though I wasn't sure how prepared Rebecca would be. Her comfortable life was about to change, at least from my perspective. Friday night I came home to Rebecca in the kitchen and the kids were scattered around the house and backyard. I took a moment to enjoy the scene of domestic bliss, but then my thoughts shifted to Rebecca with Daniel, and I knew it was time to act. Rebecca, I said, how about we get a sitter tomorrow night and go out for dinner and a drink? We need to make some plans and we get to do it without interruptions. That sounds great. She replied, we've needed some time alone, without the kids demanding our attention. I made a reservation at an Italian restaurant for 7 p.m. The sitter arrived at 6:30 and Rebecca and I headed out. I chose a quiet private table to ensure we could have the conversation I knew she wouldn't want to have. After the usual talk about kids and work, I brought up what had been on my mind. Rebecca, there's something I need to discuss, something I know you don't want to talk about. It's been bothering me for a long time. Her expression turned serious and she nervously asked, what is it? Alex, sweetie. I need to know how much longer you plan to continue your relationship with Daniel. She was stunned, coughing and trying to deny it, but I pressed on asking how much longer this affair would last. Another year. 5 years. Her reaction was unforgettable. She turned pale, struggling to breathe, and I thought she might pass out. I called the waiter, told him Rebecca was feeling ill and asked for the check and a barf bag. We left quickly, knowing it was probably the last time we dined there in the car. Rebecca sat in silence until she erupted, vomiting all over the parking lot, catching both her shoes and mine in the mess. The drive home was quiet. Once there, she headed straight to the bedroom to clean up, while I reassured the kids that she wasn't feeling well. Later I checked on her and found her sitting on the bathroom floor mess. I helped her undress and get into the shower, then took her clothes and shoes to the laundry. I knew the shoes were beyond saving. Rebecca stayed in the shower for nearly 40 minutes, likely processing the last 10 years with Daniel and what she'd do next. But it wasn't my problem anymore. It was hers and maybe Daniel's, but not mine. Rebecca came out of the shower, put on her pajamas and stayed in the bedroom, I went to the kitchen, poured myself an IPA and sat thinking about the mess we were in. My priorities were clear: the kids first, me second, and Rebecca last. I slept in the spare bedroom at night and heard nothing from Rebecca. Sunday morning I woke up early, made coffee and took a cup to Rebecca. She was curled up in bed, looking exhausted. "Morning, I brought you some coffee," I said. She slowly sat up and I reminded her that the kids would be up soon and that we had things to do. I told her I'd get breakfast started and left her to get ready. When I returned, Rebecca was gone. The day went on as usual, taking the kids to their activities. But Rebecca was unusually quiet, speaking little to me or the kids. She seemed like she'd just received terrible news and I wondered how she'd handle what was coming. After the kids were in bed, I expected Rebecca to talk, but she just went to the bedroom and closed the door. I heard her talking quietly on the phone, likely to Daniel. They were busted and I knew Daniel must be panicking, worried I'd expose him. But he probably felt safe, knowing money could solve his problems. I poured myself a beer and brought Rebecca a glass of wine. "So when are we going to talk?" I asked, handing her the wine. "I don't know what to say," she replied, her voice trembling. "Let's start at the beginning. I know you've been involved with Daniel for a long time, longer than we've been married. I feel like an outsider, like you've been lying to me our entire marriage." I took a sip of my beer. "I think about all we've done together and with the kids, and I can't understand why you didn't tell me the truth. If you didn't want me to be their father, why deceive me? You're a good man, a good husband, a great father." Rebecca said, her voice breaking. "Yes, I am, but I'm not their biological father," I responded. Rebecca looked at me with tears in her eyes, whispering, "I'm so sorry I did that to you." "Do you love Daniel so much that you wanted him to be their father?" I asked. She didn't answer. After a long silence, I asked, "So what's your plan? What do you want to do?" Rebecca remained speechless. "If you don't have a plan, then I do. You might not like it, but it's up to you to decide what you want." I told her I had spoken to the kids, telling them I had a job opportunity elsewhere. They were excited to move and thanked her. I knew I was threatening her life with Daniel, and the idea of losing him was probably more than she could handle. Until I accidentally learned the truth. I was happy thinking I had 4 great kids and a wife who cared for me. But now things had to change. "You have a decision to make," I said. "You tell me and the kids what you want." Then I got up and left the room. "I think it's best if you sleep in the spare bedroom," I added as I walked out. Meanwhile, I had my plan, which I called Operation Exodus or OPEX, ready to go. Phase 1 had been in motion for years, building my financial resources, so I could do whatever I needed. The main question was whether Rebecca would try to make amends and stay with the family, or if she'd decide her future was with Daniel. I needed that answer, but I was in no rush. Let them sweat a bit longer. I planned to continue the silent treatment to make Rebecca reconsider her actions and keep both her and Daniel guessing about my next move. I wanted her to understand that what she'd done could have consequences for her too. Most importantly, I was determined to secure my place as the father of my children. There was no way I'd let them be taken from me. I had the resources to fight and would do whatever it took to ensure Rebecca couldn't take them away. It was hard to tell just how much Rebecca understood the gravity of her deceit. She either knew exactly or was still in denial about how unhappy I was. She needed to make a decision soon, and I might have to push her along. I had a plan for that. 3 months later, Sophia told me she wanted to train for a triathlon and asked for a new racing bike. We went to the bike shop and found one that was light, fast and expensive, about 20. With all the gear, it would total around 30. She's a bit like me. I used to race mountain bikes when I had the time. Ethan wants to play hockey and his gear will cost about €3 this year, not counting the high-tech sticks. Ada wants to play soccer, which is thankfully cheaper. And Mia is interested in music lessons and basketball. The kids' schedules are overwhelming and I can't manage it all alone. Rebecca will need to help, which might interfere with her time with Daniel. Perhaps that's a good thing. My plan to force Rebecca to choose between Daniel and her family was nearing completion. The kids would play a major role, so I started putting things in place. 2 months later, I talked to the kids and they were on board with my plan. I explained that their mother needed to make a change and that we should help push her toward a decision. The kids suggested she quit her job to spend more time with us. I assured them we had enough money and that it would be best for her to be at home. With summer starting, I quietly loaded the camper, including Sophia's new bike, and prepared for our trip. The night before we left, I asked Rebecca, "So, have you made a decision?" "What decision is that?" "Alex, you know what I'm asking. Are you lonely enough in the spare bedroom? You've been there for months. It's time to choose." I walked away the next morning after breakfast. The kids and I finished packing the truck and trailer and hit the road. Rebecca wasn't with us. I knew she'd made her choice. We left Albany and headed to Canada. Sophia sat in the front navigating, while the others excitedly talked about the campground. A week later, we were in Algonquin Provincial Park in Ontario, Canada. The scenery here is breathtaking. The kids are having a blast and we're busy every day with hiking, swimming and all the fun summer activities. We drove to Huntsville to stock up on food and the kids picked up some designer hoodies from a local shop, popular but pricey. But why not? I hadn't turned on my cell phone since we left, so I have no idea what Rebecca is doing and I don't really care right now. If she's frantic wondering where we are, that's fine by me. Maybe she'll get a taste of the pain I felt when I discovered her lies. It might be cruel, but she deserves it. In a few days we're packing up and heading further east, to Nova Scotia. It'll take about a week to get there, since we only travel for 5 hours a day and then camp for a couple of days. Before moving on, I want to take the kids to Cape Breton Highlands National Park. I've read great things about it and already made a reservation. It was time to call Rebecca and let her know that everyone was fine. I had Sophia use my phone to make the call, timing it for when Rebecca would usually be with Daniel. My intention was to disrupt things and remind her that her secret was out. Sophia dialed and after 2 rings, Rebecca picked up. "JN, is that you?" Rebecca asked, her voice uncertain. "Hi Mom, it's me," Sophia replied. "Sophia. Oh my God. Sweetie. Are you and your siblings okay? Where are you?" Rebecca's voice was full of concern. "We're great, Mom," Sophia reassured her. "We're having a blast. Ethan skinned his knee climbing a mountain. Mia got stung by a bee and Dad carried Ava when she twisted her ankle." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Sophia asked, "Mom, are you still there?" "Yes, I'm here," Rebecca responded. "Is Dad there?" "He's grilling supper." Sophia said, "Do you want to talk to Ethan, Ava or Mia?" "Yes, please put them on," Rebecca requested the kids. Each took turns telling their mom about our adventures. Eventually, Mia handed the phone to me. I took a deep breath and spoke. "So Rebecca, how are you?" I asked, my voice steady. "Why did you take the kids away?" Rebecca's voice was pleading. "Please come home. Please bring my children back." "Rebecca, I loved you enough to sacrifice everything for you. But now I don't think you care enough to even give up your lover. You're with Daniel if you won't give him up for us. What do you expect from me? Think about that. I'll call in a couple of weeks and we can discuss what it means to be a family. Until then, reflect on our life and how you deceive me. Consider what you can do to make things right." If anything, I hung up without waiting for her response and turned off the phone. We had supper at a bonfire, roasting marshmallows, until the kids got tired and went to bed. I sat alone by the dying fire, drinking a beer and wondering if I was doing the right thing. My lawyer was ready to file for divorce and seek sole custody, armed with enough evidence of Rebecca's affair to sway any judge. If Rebecca challenged me with DNA tests, we'd counter with evidence of her long-term deception and unfenced as a mother. It could get ugly fast, and I wanted to avoid that. I hoped Rebecca would choose her family over Daniel, but I wasn't sure. I went to bed still uncertain about how this would all end. Part of my plan was to let Rebecca experience life without me and the kids. I knew the past few weeks had been tough on her, but we'd eventually need a permanent solution. My lawyer advised that Rebecca might try to get a court order to force me to return with the kids, so we decided to let things play out as long as possible. However, before it reached the point of legal action, I consulted with Ken about Rebecca's options. So far, she hadn't done anything but stay home, waiting for us to come back. My investigator had been monitoring her and reporting back to Ken, who sent me weekly updates including details on how often Rebecca and Daniel were still meeting. Things had cooled down between them, but I knew that if I returned, Rebecca would think she'd won and try to resume her affair. That wasn't going to happen. As summer cooled off, I knew the kids were eager to return home and prepare for school. They had countless stories from our travels to share with their friends. It wasn't fair to keep them away any longer. Around the campfire, we made plans for the trip back. We were still in Canada, enjoying our time, but it would take about a week to get home. While driving through New England, I thought about everything I wanted to say to Rebecca. I knew she'd be angry about us being gone all summer, but that was too bad. I wanted her to reflect on how she and Daniel had damaged our family. This was just a bit of payback, though not nearly enough. We pulled into the driveway in the early afternoon, and the kids scrambled out, rushing into the house to check their rooms. Rebecca's car wasn't there, which was probably for the best. I unhooked the trailer, cleaned it a bit and took a shower, noticing the fridge was nearly empty. I sent the kids to bring in food from the trailer. While we were eating, I heard a car in the driveway and Rebecca calling for the kids. They ran out to greet her and she fell to her knees in the driveway, hugging them with tears streaming down her face. The kids helped her up and walked her into the house. "Where's your dad?" she asked. Sophia replied, "He's in the kitchen, we made supper." I saw Rebecca looking for me as she entered the house. I stayed inside and then quietly went upstairs to get ready for what the next part of my plan. I didn't tell anyone where I was going or why. I drove to a city hotel, checked in and booked a room for 2 weeks to give myself time to find a more permanent place and start dealing with the divorce. I also needed to go back to work, but I realized I'd have to quit soon, even though I liked the job. After unpacking and setting up my laptop, I went out to buy some of my favorite IPA beers, returned to my room, put my feet up and reflected on all the summer memories with the kids. I wasn't sure what to do with the truck and trailer yet, so I decided to leave them at the house for now and arrange storage later. The next morning I showed up at the office half expecting they'd replaced me, but I got plenty of hellos and welcome backs and it felt like I hadn't been gone for over 2 months. My boss came by looking envious, almost like he wished he had a 2-month break. I mentioned considering a big change while traveling over the summer. Naturally, he wanted details, so I floated the idea of working as an independent subcontractor for the company handling project work. We planned to discuss specifics next week, but I knew I could always just quit and start fresh somewhere else if needed. All summer, I funded our travels with money from my secret accounts, not touching our family accounts or credit cards, so Rebecca couldn't track us. My meeting with Ken went well. The divorce paperwork was nearly ready. I knew no court would grant me custody since I wasn't the biological father, and I expected to pay child support for a while. I'd come to terms with not seeing the kids much in the future. I'm not 40 yet, so I figured there was still time to start a new family. I told Ken to serve the papers to Rebecca at home, sparing her any public embarrassment, and that's exactly what happened. Ken called to say Rebecca's lawyer wanted me to meet with her before she'd agreed to sign anything. Damn, I was hoping to avoid another session where Rebecca professes her love but won't give up. Ken suggested that talking to her might speed things up, So I agreed to do it that night. I called Rebecca and arranged to come over after the kids were in bed. When I arrived around 9 p.m., the house was fully lit and I could tell the kids were still up. As soon as I rang the doorbell, Ethan opened the door with a big smile. "Dad, you're home. Guys, Dad's home. Get down here." He jumped into my arms and it felt incredible to hold him. The other kids came running, hugging me tightly, and I couldn't hold back my tears. These are great kids. Despite everything, Rebecca stood aside as I talked to them in the kitchen. After a few minutes, I sent them off to bed. "You've got school tomorrow." Once they were gone, I sat at the table. "So, Rebecca, what did you want to talk about?" She poured herself a small glass of wine, sat down and asked, "Are you coming home?" I replied with a question. "What made you think I was coming home?" "The kids miss you and need you." "Alex, I miss you and I need you," she said with more sincerity than before. "You had plenty of chances to decide what you wanted. You made your choice a long time ago and now I've made mine. I'm guessing Daniel has thrown you under the bus and is busy making sure Emily is happy." Rebecca looked at the table and then back at me. "Alex, you're the man I wanted to marry, to raise our kids with. I love you and it hurts to see us like this. Can't we work through it? We can't write counseling. I need you and the kids need you. Are you done with Daniel?" I asked. "Yes, I'm done with him," she said emphatically. "Are you still working for the company?" "I quit my job and am looking for a new one." That was the first good sign in all of this. Rebecca promised Alex, "I will be only yours, forever yours." I sat there overwhelmed by thoughts and emotions. I couldn't even look at Rebecca or the kitchen. I just closed my eyes trying to shut everything out. I thought of my children's faces, their laughter, and the woman who had once promised me everything. Could I give that up? Where had things gone so wrong? What was my future without them? I desperately wished to undo all the pain. Could I do it? Stay or go? But deep down I knew Rebecca was lying. It was all nonsense. She'd chosen Daniel for over a decade, and even if they'd called it recently, it wouldn't last. Once I moved back, they'd restart, no matter what Rebecca said. I knew the final part of my plan was necessary. It would take time, but it would be worth it. 10 years of lies. What's that worth? So yeah, I moved back home. The kids were thrilled and Rebecca seemed happy too. She went into overdrive with domestic duties, trying to show what a great mother and wife she could be. Yeah, some might think I'm weak for going back to Rebecca after knowing she's been with Daniel since before we met. But think again. What wins the battle? Planning and patience. I knew deep down that Rebecca couldn't change. She'd taken breaks from Daniel before, like when the kids were born, but always returned to him. So what would be different now? Nothing. I knew she'd wait until she thought I trusted her, then quietly resume her affair with Daniel. So I waited, gathering the evidence I needed to end this sham of a marriage. I met with my lawyer and the investigator, and after another payment, the work continued. I just needed to let nature take its course and, as expected, Rebecca and Daniel picked up right where they left off in just a few months. No time at all for a patient man with a plan. Rebecca took a couple of months off, then found a part-time job, which was really just an excuse to me. Daniel. My second meeting with the investigator confirmed they were back to using his hideaway, spending parts of the afternoons a week together. I knew she couldn't stay away from him. It was almost laughable when I got home from work and saw her overly cheerful demeanor compensating for her guilt. After an afternoon with Daniel, time marched on and I waited for the right moment to kick my plan into high gear. Meanwhile, I made a point of having sex with Rebecca almost every night, except on the days I knew she was with Daniel. On those days I was extra nice, the attentive husband. I took her out for dinner, did things as a family, bought her flowers and small gifts and complimented her on her parenting. I wanted to lull her into a false sense of security to make her believe she had won. I wanted Rebecca to see what she had thrown away, to fully grasp the mess she and Daniel had created. I wanted her to remember the summer I took the kids to Canada as just a taste of her new life. She could have Daniel all she wanted. I wouldn't care anymore. I reminded myself to be patient, to wait and then to act. June. End of the school year. My meeting with the lawyer and investigator is done. They've prepared all the doc for Rebecca and Daniel. I set at 8 for the server to deliver the papers at my house. I told Rebecca and the kids we'd be leaving the day after school ended. The trailer was packed with food and everything we'd need, and I told the kids to get their things ready for the tricky day. Rebecca left for shopping around 8:30, planning to be out for about 3 hours perfect. By 9, the kids and I quickly loaded up the truck and hit the road, heading to parts unknown, at least unknown to Rebecca. My burner phone buzzed. In my desk, the one Rebecca usually texts me on. I keep the ringer off, but it was quiet and I heard it vibrating. I checked the text. I need to see you right away. Meet me at the apartment in an hour. We hadn't planned on meeting for a while. Her husband was taking time off to use their camper, and he and the kids like traveling. I don't really consider them my kids. Sure, I got her pregnant, but that's what she wanted. I know it's weird, but she's great in bed. What does she want now? I showed up at the apartment, grabbed a beer and waited. Rebecca rushed in a few minutes later, looking upset, with a large brown envelope in hand. She tossed it on the table. Daniel, he did it. He left with the kids. This morning I got served this, she said, pointing at the envelope. What do I do? She sat down, put her face in her hands, then got up, grabbed a glass of wine and took a large gulp. When she looked at me, I saw fear in her eyes, something I'd never seen before, usually just lust. I dumped the envelope's contents on the table and sorted through the papers. I found the divorce documents and quickly scanned them. There were photos attached with a note saying they were just a sample of what could be used in the divorce process. Rebecca handed me another envelope with her name on. It read this, she said. I read it. Oh crap. I went back to the divorce papers, found the signature page and handed her a pen sign. Now, I said firmly. She started to speak but couldn't get the words out. You need to sign this now. Alex will make our lives miserable if Emily finds out, and your kids, they're yours too, she added. I quietly acknowledged, yes, they are. I took a big drink of beer, realizing there was only one way out of this mess. Signed the papers. Rebecca. If Emily finds out, my life will be ruined. Her family's political connections would eliminate our business. This would be a disaster. I like my big house and the connections we have. We need to salvage what we can. I handed her the pen. Alex has won. We need to move on. My interest in Rebecca was fading fast. I liked having a married woman at my beck and call, and getting her pregnant was a thrill. But now she was becoming a liability. I had to make sure this didn't go any further. Rebecca looked worn out, but she took the pen, signed the 4 spots and collapsed back into the chair on the road again. I know, cliché, right? The kids are having a blast as we head west. When we left Albany, the truck was quiet. That first day we drove west, aiming to put some distance between us and Albany. Before stopping, I had reserved a spot at an RV park and we arrived just before supper. Everyone was exhausted, so I quickly hooked up the camper, got us settled and made dinner. That night we had a campfire, roasted marshmallows and talked. The kids had a lot of questions about where we're going and what we do when we got there. They deserved some answers. I know you're curious about the next few weeks. There will be adventure, hiking, bugs, and probably a few cuts and scrapes, I said, looking at Adi and Mia, who laughed remembering our time in Ontario last summer. I had shared some of the plan with Sophia, since she's the oldest. But now it was time for everyone to know, do you guys like horses? I asked. The kids erupted in excitement. Well, I paused. How about riding horses on a ranch in West Texas? The kids cheered, running around the campfire, pretending to be horses. I wasn't entirely sure if this was the right move. It would be a big change for all of us. But what was I thinking when I bought that ranch near San Angelo? It was up for auction, and I got it for just over $2 million. The house is a huge 5-bedroom log home, well maintained but with room for some renovations. The land spans over 1.5 acres. Plenty of space to explore. There are several outbuildings and I plan to convert one near the house into a horse barn. A local farmer wants to graze cattle on the land, which will help cover some costs. My main concern was finding good schools for the kids. But San Angelo, just a few miles away, has everything we need. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. West Texas. What was I thinking 3 months later? We arrived in San Angelo in late July after a slow, indirect journey from Albany to avoid Rebecca. I need have worried. My lawyer reported that Rebecca signed the divorce papers without issue. She even had our lawyer review the package I put together, which included the house, all the furniture, our bank accounts, both cars and enough money to maintain the house. For a year, the house was worth about 60 points euro, with a 15 points euro mortgage. Rebecca could sell it and walk away with nearly 45 points euro. The car I left her, a VW Pat, would last a while. I took the Subaru and the trailer. We packed only what we needed, knowing we get new things in Texas. The divorce settlement also included certified DNA tests confirming that I wasn't the kid's biological father. I even compelled Daniel to submit his DNA for comparison. My top priority was securing sole custody of the kids, with no visitation rights for Rebecca. If she contested, my lawyer was ready to expose everything to Daniel's wife in the public, which would ruin him. Daniel complied and Rebecca signed everything, including a clause that she would never seek financial support from me again. She also had to revert to her maiden name. This chapter of my life was officially closed. The kids and I were ready to start fresh. So here I am, not yet 40, with 4 kids between 7 and 12, owning a ranch in West Texas and $7 million in the bank. What do I do? Whatever I want. We moved into the ranch, got everything set up before school started, and the kids were great. They helped with everything, making this place feel like home. The biggest day came when we went to a horse ranch for riding lessons. The kids were so excited they couldn't tame themselves. The instructor, Lily, was every bit the country girl check shirt, tight jeans, high jeans, cowboy boots and a white hat. She's also a veterinarian and a barrel racer, something I knew nothing about but was eager to learn. The first riding lesson was fun and a bit awkward. Fun for the kids and awkward for me, because I'd never been on a horse. Lily picked gentle, well-trained horses for the kids, wanting them to get comfortable before progressing. Then she turned to me, "Okay, Alex, let's meet your horse." She said me no. I'm thinking of getting a quad to drive around. Instead, I protested. She gave me a stern look. "You can get the quad, but your kids are learning to ride and you need to ride with them. Stop arguing and take the reins. This is Pete Hume, about 10, and we treat you right if you treat him right," she added quietly. "Besides, the kids are watching you. Bear down the horse." She was right. I climbed on, feeling out of place in my hiking boots, jeans, and windbreaker. Afterward, Lily suggested we get proper riding gear for the kids and offered to help us shop. When she asked if my wife would be riding, I told her there wasn't a wife anymore. She nodded, clearly filing that information away for later. "Grab your stuff and get in the truck. Let's go," I yelled as the kids were running late for school. It's about a 20-minute drive and I didn't want them to miss the start of the day. Their school is pretty good and I've made sure to meet all their teachers and the principal, so they know how to reach me if there's ever an issue. I converted the old weapon room into a study area and library for them, complete with new bookshelves, desks, computers, tablets and a business-grade printer. It feels like a top-notch study hall. The kids don't give me any trouble about homework and I'm always around to help. We even set up a 65-inch TV for streaming educational content, and I upgraded our internet to super fast fiber optic. In the evenings I'm busy driving the kids to their activities, but their favorite is horseback riding. While they're in school, I've been learning to ride myself. I spend an hour or two at the stables and I'm getting more comfortable in the saddle. Even Pete, the horse, seems to notice. One day Lily, who was at the ranch to vaccinate some horses, saw me riding back. "Look at you getting all confident on horseback," she said with a smile. "Thanks. But Pete, he does most of the work," I replied. Lily asked, "Have you decided when you're getting your own horses?" "I'm almost ready. Just need to finish up the barn. Maybe in 2 or 3 weeks." The kids are eager, but I want the barn to be fully prepared when you're ready. Would you like my help finding the right horses for the kids? And I assume you'll be getting one too. I smiled. I'd love your help. The kids would be thrilled. Maybe we could discuss it over dinner or a drink. I'd like that. How about this weekend? Perfect. I was excited. It wasn't exactly a date, but it would be my first time out with a woman since Rebecca. We made plans and Lily went back to work. The kids teased me about my evening with Lily. I picked her up in my freshly washed and clean truck. She wanted something different from the usual Texas barbecue. So we went to an Italian restaurant known for its good food and wine. I was nervous when I rang her doorbell, but when she answered, I was stunned. She was in a dress, her hair down, and she looked beautiful. Wow, I told her she looked lovely and opened the truck door for her. My mom taught me good manners. After some initial awkwardness, we got drinks and started talking. We talked, ate and talked some more. I limited myself to 1 drink since I was driving, but Lily had a bit more, still keeping her composure. At the end of the night I got a kiss on the cheek and a thanks for a great evening. When I got home I paid the neighbor for watching the kids, and then I was bombarded by 4 EG kids wanting all the details about my evening with Lily. The barn should be finished early next week, so next weekend we'll head out with Lily to look at some horses. Alex and the kids must have started early on Saturday because they picked me up around 7:30 am. Alex had a new Suburban that seats 8, and while the kids wanted me to sit with them, Alex insisted I take the front passenger seat. I had arranged a visit to a ranch south of town known for selling off a number of young horses each year as part of their breeding business. The drive was short, about 30 minutes, with the kids excitedly discussing what they wanted in a horse. My role was to guide them in choosing horses. They could handle no wild stallions or overly tall ones. We spent the day looking at, talking about, and riding horses. By the end we picked 5 that matched the riding style and ETS of John and the kids. To celebrate, they invited me to their ranch for a barbecue and a tour of the new horse barn. The kids eagerly showed me around and I was impressed by the upgrades Alex had made. The barn had new walls, a roof, solar power, a backup generator, a tack room, a wash stall, and ample hay storage. The LED lighting was on timers and each stall had its own water faucet. This was a top-notch barn. After the barn tour, the kids led me to the house, which was more like a mansion than a cabin. 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a huge library, and 4 fireplaces. Alex modestly said needs a bit of work. The barbecue was fantastic and the kids kept me entertained with their jokes and games. After they went to bed, I took John's hand and asked him to show me the master bedroom. We brought glasses of wine, and once the door was shut and the lights dimmed, I kicked off my boots and jeans. John stood back taking in the view before slowly unbuttoning his shirt. What happened next was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. I was in a great mood after my time with Lily. She's incredible, hands down. The best CEX of my life. I tried to give her my all, even though it had been months since I'd been with a woman. Let's be real. Z with Rebecca was just about revenge after finding out about Daniel, and it lacked any real passion. But now this was different. It was intense and passionate. Lily is amazing. I'm not sure yet if this is just about satisfying basic needs or something deeper, but it wouldn't take much for me to fall for her. She's smart, talented, resourceful and beautiful. What's not to love? Afterward we showered, made some food, had a beer and then went back to bed for round 2. Yes, again. I'm grinning as I say that the next morning the kids were surprised to see Lily in the kitchen with me. Sophia gave me a look that said, "What's up, Dad?" But the others just started talking about horses and planning for when we bring them to the ranch. Renovations on the house are moving along. We're updating the kitchen and bathrooms and adding environmental systems to improve the house's efficiency and reduce its carbon footprint. I've got solar panels, a wind generator and a geothermal heating and cooling system. The well was deepened and widened with a water storage tank installed for extra capacity and fire suppression. We also had to replace the septic system and I upgraded the backup generator to integrate with the new systems for uninterrupted power. I've been investing a lot in the house almost as fast as I'm earning it. That means I've been keeping a close eye on the stock market. Thankfully, the markets are doing well and, despite the spending, my finances are solid, thanks in part to tax breaks and incentives for solar installations. I'm also setting aside some profits and fixed interest accounts as a safety net in case the market tanks. If things go south, we could sell part of the land and still cover our expenses. So what's happening with Lily? Fair question. I'll let her fill you in on that. Since getting to know JN and the kids, I've seen how close they are as a family. JN is an amazing father and the kids are fantastic. They work together like a team and I've never heard them complain. JN and I have had some deep conversations about his divorce from Rebecca. He shared how her affair with her old boyfriend lasted throughout their marriage right up until last summer. He also told me how he left her taking the kids in his big fifth-wheel trailer and eventually ended up here. It's quite a story. JN also revealed that Rebecca's boyfriend is the biological father of the kids, but he's determined to keep them no matter what. Rebecca must be out of her mind to cheat on JN. I can't think of a better man to be married to, which is why I'm patiently waiting for him to ask. My parents are dropping hints about my future and they've met John and the kids and really like them. My mom adores those kids, treating them like royalty. When we visited, my dad has grilled JN with 40 questions over beers a few times. My mom has done everything but outright asked, "When we're getting married tonight's the night I'll chain my life in my children's lips forever. I'm going to ask Lily to marry me. It's warm and I wanted everything to be just right." So I invited Lily's parents over for a barbecue to celebrate our new pool. I told the kids about my plan and reminded them not to assume Lily would say yes. Marrying into a family of 5 is a big step, even though she spent days at a time with us. Living with 4 kids full-time will be a major adjustment. I was nervous. I've been down this road before and we all know how that turned out. Some might think I'm foolish or oblivious, but I believe Rebecca and I were a team. Had I known the truth, my life might have been very different. But here I am now, a man with 4 kids on a ranch in West Texas, about to propose to a beautiful 52-year-old woman. It was time the kids helped. Set up the patio, brought out a cooler and glasses and played a special CD. I hid the ring box in a flower pot. I took Lily by the hand and led her to a chair in the middle of the semicircle, with everyone behind her. I began. "You're probably wondering what I'm up to." Lily smiled and nodded. I continued. "Since I met you, I've fallen in love with you more every day." Then I got the ring box, knelt in front of Lily and asked Lily, "Will you marry me?" She replied, "I was wondering when you'd ask Alex Strickland." "Yes, I'd love to marry you." I placed the ring on her finger and we kissed, as the parents and the kids applauded. Just as they were about to join us, Lily held up her hand and said, "Wait, I have something for you." She pulled out a small white plastic object from her pocket and handed it to me. I knew immediately what it was. "It's a good thing you proposed, because you're going to be a father again." Holy crap. We got married and became a new family, starting with 6 unwanted people. Our son, William, was born at 7 pound 11 oz and both mother and son are doing great. I'm still on cloud 9. The ranch is thriving. We started our own small cattle herd and hired cowboys for daily tasks. Lily's father has been a huge help in setting up the business and is here almost every day. The kids are riding more and I'm getting more comfortable on a horse. I also got a side-by-side Fifa for people with a cargo box and trailer for ranch work. I started a business refurbishing and reselling pickup trucks and farm equipment, hiring 3 mechanics from a local trade school. Used equipment is in high demand since new gear is pricey, so we're filling that gap. I also launched a small construction company hiring to carpenters from the community college and we're doing smaller jobs to build our reputation. My father-in-law oversees the business with a firm hand. If demand grows, I'll add another crew. We're all busy growing and becoming part of the community. The doorbell rang and I went to check who it was, with Mia by my side. On the video monitor, I saw a woman around 40, attractive and alone. Mia tugged at my arm. "Oh Mom, listen to Thursday. That's the woman who used to be my mother. I don't want to see her." She quickly left the foyer, heading toward her room. It was Rebecca. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before opening the door. She glanced me over quickly. "Can I help you?" I asked. "Yes. I'm looking for Alex Strickland. I heard he might live here." "Yes, he does. I'm his wife, Lily Strickland. What do you want with my husband?" She hesitated, then said, "I was hoping to talk to him and see my children." "You're Rebecca, aren't you? Jan is in town and the kids are at school. Leave your phone number and he might call you when he's back. Maybe I can wait for him." "That's probably not a good idea. John has told me about you and I'm confident the kids don't want to see. You damaged that relationship a long time ago. I doubt John will want to talk to you either. You worked hard to deceive him, and he's worked hard to move on and be a great father. It's best if you go home." As we spoke, I kept an eye on her face and hands. This is Texas and most Texans have a weapon nearby. Just in case I didn't know if she was having a breakdown or seeking revenge, watching her hands would signal if she reached for a weapon. In which case I'd shut and lock the door and get my own weapon. Our front door is thick, reinforced with a metal plate capable of stopping a bullet or rifle blast. The original owner installed it for his family's protection. We also had an alarm system with a panic button that would call the sheriffs. Growing up in Texas, I learned to shoot as a kid. My father, Lasar, a National Guard veteran with a tour in Iraq, taught me and my brothers to shoot accurately. Protecting my family is my top priority. We keep 2 weapons in the house, both locked up but easily accessible. I wasn't worried about Rebecca. Rebecca stood there for a moment, then began to cry. I really need to talk to him. I want to apologize for all the pain I caused him and the kids. What makes you think he wants to see you at all? Maybe he doesn't. But could you please tell him I'd like to talk just for a few minutes? She handed me a piece of paper with her phone number in the motel where she was staying. Here's my number. Please, I just want to talk to him for a few minutes. When I got back home with the kids, Lily told me we had a visitor that afternoon. Rebecca. I couldn't believe she had found us. I didn't want to hear or anything to do with her. If she didn't understand that by now, she was clearly delusional. I decided to call her mother. I hadn't spoken to any of Rebecca's family since before I took the kids to Canada a couple of years ago. I knew they must have been curious about what happened and where I'd gone with their grandchildren. When we left Albany, I let Rebecca handle explaining things to her family. I didn't care. My only concern was the safety and well-being of my kids. The call went as expected, lots of shouting, crying, pleading and some things Rebecca's mother said that angered me. She begged to see her grandkids and it became clear she didn't know Rebecca had left the city to find us. She also didn't understand of Rebecca's affair with Daniel, which had lasted over a decade. Rebecca hadn't told her much of the truth. I asked what she planned to do, but she didn't have an answer. So I mentioned I was considering a restraining order to keep Rebecca away. I told her I had a new wife, a new son, and a new life, and asked her to make it clear to Rebecca that she needed to leave us alone by the end of the call. I was sure I wouldn't allow Rebecca any contact with the kids when they became adults. They could decide for themselves, but until then I was firm in my decision. Lily agreed with me. The next morning I called my lawyer in Albany and asked him to contact Daniel's lawyer, suggesting it would be in Daniel's best interest to convince Rebecca to return to Albany and leave us alone. If Daniel failed, there could be consequences. Your imagination can fill in the blanks. After the call, Lily and I made a plan to ensure the kids wouldn't be ambushed by Rebecca. I was concerned Rebecca might be having a mental health crisis, thinking she could solve all her problems by coming to Texas. Lily's father even brought some of his weapons over for protection, but I assured him we were well prepared, so he took most of them back home. After visiting and hugging everyone, especially our son William, my lawyer gave Daniel's lawyer a deadline, and I wanted proof that Rebecca was back in Albany, but I knew I would eventually have to confront her face to face. One last time the next day, around supper time, the doorbell rang. It was Rebecca. Lily was right behind me, telling me the kids were in the library with the door closed, so they couldn't hear what was happening. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "Hello, Rebecca." She looked at me and then at Lily. "May I come in?" I held up my hand to stop her. "If you came here hoping we'd return to Albany, you've wasted your time. We're not coming back. The kids and I have a new life here, and, as you can see, Lily and I are married and have a family. I just want to see my children. That's all I'm asking. Vengeance means different things to different people, but for me it was taking the kids and leaving Rebecca as payback for her decade of deceit. Moving to Texas was a way to escape the humiliation of staying in a marriage built on lies. I couldn't abandon my children, whom I loved and who saw me as their father and protector, so any plan I made had to include them. I thought about it during our trip to Canada and knew, when we returned, that I had to act. Now Rebecca was standing on my porch asking to see the kids, despite signing over custody to me in the divorce and agreeing to no contact. Why now? Was it regret, remorse, or the realization that she was no longer a mother to her children? Whatever the reason, it had to be significant. Why now, Rebecca? Why drive all the way from Albany? What makes you think the kids want to see you, after everything you did? Sophia and Ethan know what you did, and Avi and Mia know you chose your boyfriend over us. Are you still with Daniel? Rebecca looked down. Daniel and I are done. And how does that change anything here? Alex, I just want to see the kids. I miss them. Please, would you let me see them? I need to think about it and talk to the kids, but it's not happening right now. Go back to your motel and I'll call you. I needed time to figure out what was really going on. Was she having a breakdown, thinking this would solve everything? Or was someone pushing her to do this? Either way, I wasn't about to let her hurt my family again. She nodded, gave me the motel's name and a phone number, and walked to her car, my old Subaru. She looked back at the house before getting in, then slowly drove off. I closed the door as Lily and I turned around. Sophia was standing behind us. What did she want? That night, at supper, I brought up their mother. The kids stopped teething and looked at me. I told them she had asked if they wanted to see her. After a long discussion, we took a vote. I wasn't surprised when they all said no. I knew what I had to do. I called Daniel. He was shocked to hear from me after everything that had happened. I had to repeat myself a couple of times before he understood. Daniel, your girlfriend showed up on my porch, violating our agreement. Get her out of Texas now. But what makes you think I can tell her what to do? Wake up, Daniel. If you don't get her out of here, I'll consider this a violation of our agreement, and your wife, Emily, remember her, will receive a package of information by courier. Do you like your comfortable life in Albany? Silence. Well, do you? I don't know what you're talking about on. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. Daniel, I'll ruin your life, your business and everything you've got. You'll regret ever getting involved with her. You have 24 hours to get her out of Texas. More silence. Do you understand? Quietly, he replied. I understand. I gave him the details of Rebecca's motel. That night Lily's parents came over and we decided it might be best if Lily and the kids stayed with them. Until this was resolved, we didn't tell the kids much. Just that. Grandma and Grandpa invited us over after Lily and the kids left. I waited to see what would happen. Surprisingly, not much did. Rebecca didn't show up again. When I visited the motel, the manager told me there had been some fuss with a woman from out east, a lawyer and another man, but they all left. Shortly after, my lawyer called around midnight to say Daniel's lawyer had informed him Rebecca was on her way back to Albany. Daniel guaranteed she wouldn't bother us again. I later learned that Daniel had hired a local lawyer and investigator to find Rebecca, then flew to Texas himself to convince her to return to Albany. That was the last time I saw her in the morning. We all went home and life returned to normal. Hold on to that horse, I shouted at Sophia as she practiced barrel racing in the ring with her pony. Hard right. Both she and the horse were learning, and though it would take some time before she was ready for a major competition, she was making great progress. Hard left now. Right hard to the finish line. Not bad for a beginner. The kids are growing and getting busier every year. Alex even got William a pony and he takes Will on rides with him. The horse is gentle, knowing it has a toddler rider. Will is still very young, but I can tell he's going to love riding. As for me, I'm not riding at the moment because I'm pregnant again. I still do some vet work, but that's winding down as my due date approaches. Between the kids, the ranch, our businesses and me. Alex splits in long days at night when we go to bed. He massages my feet and back and we make love. Sleeping on clothes seems to encourage that sort of thing. Sorry, I need to go pee again. These twins are always pressing on my bladder. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.